live.
Hello, I'm Marvin Chiu. I'm from Singapore, all the way to SAA headquarters now to show you a demo. Today I'm going to paint a watercolor painting. Subject is a tropical waterfall. This photo was taken in Borneo, all the way from Borneo. Have any one of you been to Borneo before? I guess not. You? All right. Okay, so for a start, I did this, which is a value studies, pencil sketch, value studies of the composition. So I get to know where the light is and the dark is. All right. So I'm going to following this closely. It's always important to do a value study so that you know how to get around the painting. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I have a blank piece of paper here. I'm using Arches 140 pound or 300 grams. It's cold press. I like to use the reverse side of the cold press paper because it is slightly rougher than the correct side. If you're not sure which is the correct side, if you look at the watermark and if you can read it, the brand name correctly, that's supposed to be the correct side, but I like to use the reverse side because of the rough texture. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to do a quick pencil sketch. It wouldn't be a very detailed drawing. It's just a quick sketch to mark where everything's supposed to be. Okay, so let's start from the sketch here. You notice that this a kind of a C shape composition, the letter C. So I'll start with the waterfall. So I'm not going to place it right smack in the middle. I'm going to move it slightly to the left and slightly to the bottom, somewhere here. Okay. And followed by lots of trees, lush rainforests. You've got different types of leaves in UK, but it doesn't matter. Tropical leaves are usually thicker. And if you look at the photos, there's lots of greens, lots and lots of green colors in this picture. I know a lot of people always struggle, with the color green. I'm going to explain later how I paint green and make it easier for all of you. Okay, there's some hanging branches on top here. And leave a bit of blank here for the water. And there's on the foreground there's a few more leaves and branches, and then right at the bottom here you got rocks. I'm going to shift this slightly over here. Okay. So if you're following us since this morning, you've seen David paint what he calls the days of remains of the days. Yeah, you notice that his approach and mine is very, very different, and that's the wonderful thing about watercolor. You've got thousands and millions of ways to paint watercolor. Well, maybe not that many, but you know what I mean. Watercolor is very, very versatile medium, and I paint more impressionist, whereas David likes to paint close-up subjects, still lifes, but when it comes to painting, it's always about capturing the essence, the subject that you want to tell to the audience. Actually, painting is just like storytelling, right? So for what we have here is a beautiful tropical waterfall coming down from there. And it reminds me of my childhood. Sometimes on a weekend or a Sunday, my father would bring us to a stream like this, and then we just took off our clothes, and then jump into the stream. And it's really cooling. Tropical country, it's really hot, and we always look forward to days like this where we can just jump into the stream, and it's fantastic. All right, so this is what I have here, the very rough pencil sketch. Okay, so I have the waterfall, the main features is here. If you understand composition rules, usually I try to apply the rules of third, meaning you break your paper into 3 parts, vertically and horizontally, and then you place your main subject, your subject matter, or your center of interest at these 4 corners where the third of the paper are, all right? So we're just gonna make sure that it's fixed properly. All right, before I start painting, I'll just introduce what color I'm going to be using today. Most of my colors here are by Daniel Smith. They are Hansa Yellow, although I have, 16 colors, I'm not going to use all of them today. I'll probably just use Hansa Yellow Light. You can substitute with lemon yellow if you don't have Hansa Yellow Light. Permanent Yellow Deep, Yellow Ochre, Sap Green, Cerulean Blue, Horizon Blue is by Holbein, Ultramarine Blue, Burnt Sienna, Lunar Black, and Chinese White, which I have it in a tube. I'll use it out of the tube usually, just a bit of it. Okay, so now we're ready for the first wash. Usually with watercolor, we tend to one step ahead. You need to do some planning, pre-planning. You don't have to write notes, but have it planned in your head. I usually do. And at this moment, I have to figure out, roughly where your hard edges should be or your soft edges should be. Waterfalls, they are, flowing fast, so they should be having a soft edge. So I would like to add some water at the sides here, not too much, so that when I paint on the greens here, it results in very soft edges on the waterfall. Okay, and then I'll just randomly wet the sky and part of the greens here. Certain area where I want it to have hard edges, like the trees here, I keep it dry. And the rocks, usually you need rocks to be rigid and solid, so you don't wet that part. I just wet stream. Yes. Okay.
Sorry, Marvin, I'm having a little trouble with your microphone there. Hold on.
Okay.
I'm going to have to rush on. Wave to everybody at home. Hello.
Hello. If my children is watching, hello, Lily's here. Okay.
Just a little crackly.
All right. So with the water on, watercolor painting is always about timing. When you first apply water, it is dripping wet. Sometimes you need to wait for it to dry a little bit, not dry totally, a bit damp. Then you apply the wash. So I'm going to use. What do we have here? Cerulean Blue. Okay, this is Cerulean Blue. Not too much, it's very diluted, just for the sky. Okay. Sometimes I like to leave a bit of white of the paper untouched so that the colors and the white of the paper will blend together, and I use tissue paper to soften some of it so that it looks like there's a cloudy sky effect. Okay, I think that will do. And as I said, this timing is crucial. If you do this maybe 2 minutes later, it will get dried up and you don't get this effect anymore. Okay. While waiting for this to dry up, I mentioned about the difficulty most people face when painting green. So I'm going to explain to you what I meant. If you look at my palette here, this is sap green. All right. To me, it is a very neutral green. Okay. The most neutral green usually you can find on the paint tube. Usually, if you look at the color wheel, we got a few shades of green, many shades of green. Yellowish green, bluish green, some are olive green. In Chinese language, we have two words for green, Anyone aware of that? All right, in English, you just got one word for green, it's green. But in Chinese, I'm a Chinese actually, so you got these two words. It's pronounced as qing, and this pronounced as lü. Qing means the blue shade of green, or blue-green as I written here. Lü is the yellowish green. So with that in mind, try to always remember that there are actually basically two types of green, the bluish shades and the yellow shades. Okay, when do you use the yellow shades and when do you use the blue shades? One rule of thumb is I usually use blue shade when it is in a distance, okay, or when it's in a shady area, it's bluish green. Whereas yellow shade green are used when there's brightly lit, the leaves are bright, yellow green is brightly lit, or it could be towards the foreground, the colors are brighter, so I use more yellowish green. Understand so far? Got that? Okay, so let's start. But with this picture, you notice that the distant greens here are yellowish green because it's brightly lit. So I got a little bit of problem here. It is in the background, but it's brightly lit. So now we have to make a decision. Should we keep it as it is on the photo, having it yellowish green, brightly lit, or we use a bit of artistic license and change it, push it back and use a more bluish, maybe a bit grayish kind of green to push it back to the background. I think I will do that. All right. So as an artist, you have to make up your own decision about composition, about color choices. So in this case, we're going to change this to slightly bluish green. So what I have here, the leftover of the cerulean blue, I'm going to take some of my sap green. This is a Winsor Newton Series 7 Kolinsky Sabre brush, number 10. Okay, mix that cerulean blue with sap green. I think I need a little bit more blue. This is ultramarine blue. Okay, just put it in there. This is just the right amount of time for it to blend. And notice that it is still a bit damp after I painted the sky, and now it's kind of smudged a little bit into the sky and creating a very soft effect. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre to the mix. So notice I don't use one green and paint the whole picture. You're going to change your colors as you go along. Notice the strokes that I'm making. It is not just painting straight on, vertically, or most people like to do these strokes or these strokes, and it looks ugly because it is flat. So when you're painting things like foliage or leaves, move it around, make your brush dance. It's fun, rather than have it very rigid. And sometimes I splatter some water like this, so that it has some what do you call that? Water bursting in the middle of the wash. Some call it cauliflower. Some try to avoid it. It's like, to them, it's like, what do you call that? What what do you call it? Things that you don't want to have. Sorry about my English, it's not my first language.
A mistake.
Yeah, it's like a mistake, or sometimes accidents does happen, and sometimes it is precisely what you want. When accident happens, it makes the whole thing looks a little bit unpredictable and fun to look at, actually. I think I added a bit of a turquoise color, sorry. That's when you talk and too much and doesn't think. Okay, I added a bit of a ultramarine blue here. Okay. If you look back at the sketch that I did, okay, we have darks at both sides of the waterfall, but I'm going to make this side a little bit darker than this. Okay, so while it is still a bit damp, I think it's dried up. Okay, let's touch it a little bit more. Okay, and then I'm going to paint this now. I'm going to tilt the board slightly to the right a little bit so that it flows this way. You can see it at home. Okay, with tissue paper, I'm going to blot this out a bit. Back to sap green. Okay. Now this is Hansa yellow light. I'll mix it here with a bit of sap green. And then paint it all over this side, maybe a little bit more lemon yellow. Okay, I'm going to show a bit of the white of the paper showing through, and it will give a very nice highlight. Okay, a bit of permanent yellow dip, just to change the hue a little bit, so you don't see the same color everywhere. Okay, I'm going to use the same color here, over here, just to blend it in. And over here as well. David is right just now, if you're following his demo earlier. While the paint is wet, you can do anything with it. You can touch it, you can change the colors. But once it's dried up, don't touch it, otherwise you get very ugly mud. Bit more lemon yellow over this side, which is bright. When you paint, whether it's outdoor or from a photograph, it's always important to look out for. I'm gonna blot this out again. It's a bit too wet. Okay. Right, so what I'm saying is you need to look out for areas that are brightly lit and leave it a bit of white to show very strong sunlight. I come from Malaysia and Singapore. Malaysia is where I'm born, and now I live in Singapore. They are both tropical countries, and we get sunlight. It's like summer all year round. So my painting is it's an observation, it's a record of what I see. So we get lots of sunlight, and then that's the white of the paper is amazing. You have to leave it white, and then it will give you the brightest white ever. Although I have Chinese white in my bag, I only use it for slight corrections of for a little bit of highlights and here and there. But most of the time, I try to leave white as much as possible. All right. I'll let this dry a little bit, and we'll go onto the water. Okay, this is ultramarine blue, and I'll mix a little bit of horizon blue on it so that it's a little bit brighter, although horizon blue is an opaque color, so try not to use it by itself or paint it in very milky, creamy consistency. It will get muddy very quickly. Just a quick wash over like this. You notice the speed of my stroke. Sometimes I go very, very fast. It's because I want to get dry brush strokes like this on the paper. Okay. Just gonna a few downward strokes to suggest some kind of reflections. Okay. Now this more or less is the first wash. While waiting for the leaves to dry, I'm going to paint the first layer of the rocks. Here's burnt sienna. Ran out of place to mix. Okay, burnt sienna here. And a little bit of ultramarine blue. Okay, I love these two colors. They're my favorite colors. Burnt sienna and ultramarine blue mix the best grays you can get. Okay, if you need a bit of a warmer gray, you can add a touch of alizarin crimson over here. Okay, if you want to cool it down a little bit, you can add a bit of cerulean blue to the mix. Okay, so in this case, there's a lot of blues, a lot of greens here. I think I'm going to warm up the gray a little bit for the rocks. So this is alizarin crimson, just a touch. Okay, so here we go. So the rocks. I'm going to warm it up a bit. When painting the first layer like this, I usually like to mix the color as I go, so that it serves as a underpainting, to give it a bit more interest, and otherwise it looks flat and a bit dull. Okay. I'll let this run down a little bit. Maybe I'm going to tilt it a bit more. All right. And then add sap green with ultramarine blue and let it blend into the rocks, creating a bit of a soft edge there. All right. Okay, I'm going to use this flat brush. I found that the edge on the waterfall is a bit too hard for my liking. Okay, so So make sure you use clean water and just gently scrub it off at the side, like this. And with a tissue paper, just blot it out. There you go. All right. Okay. So this is the first wash. Usually I will do glazing, which means layering another colors for the mid-tones. I'll let this dry a little bit. Maybe I'll use the hairdryer now. All right. Okay. Any questions from the audience so far?
No, there's just people liking it.
All right, cool.
Nicole says she's loving it so far.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm going to do now is the next stage, the next layer of colors. So I'm going to add the mid-tones. Sometimes I'll go directly to the dark tones, and depends. If I knew that I just need very dark tones on that particular area, I'll just go straight on. So I'll explain along the way. I'm going to change my brush to this slightly smaller one, Kolinsky Sabre Round number 6. Okay, ultramarine blue, sap green, and now it's quite milky consistency. A touch of yellow ochre. Okay, currently I've realized that there's a bit flat here. Okay, so I'm going to add slightly darker colors here, as well as a bit more texture for the leaves. Okay, so I'm going to add this over here. A bit of water to soften things up. This is the leftover from the water just now. A bit of it over here just to blend it in. Okay. So when painting landscape like this, in impressionist style, you don't go to paint every single leaf, are you? We won't be here. We'll be here till tomorrow. So what I do is kind of like Chinese calligraphy strokes. You know, I learned Chinese calligraphy when I'm in primary school. I'm not sure whether you can attend a class of Chinese calligraphy here, but if you got the chance, attend one, and you'll notice that how useful it is for watercolor painting, because the strokes are the same, and it helps to make your work look more spontaneous. This is Lunar Black. I use Lunar Black a wee bit just to make the colors a little bit darker. I used to add Payne's gray onto some of the colors when I want to get really rich dark. But now I switch it to Lunar Black because I like the granulation effect of this color. I'm going to have a bit more dark here. Okay, so I painted this while it is still a bit damp, so that it creates a very subtle change in values here. Okay, and likewise, I'm going to add a bit over on the left side. Doesn't matter which side you do this. It's just a coincidence that my hand is here, so I touch this first. You know, painting impressionists sometimes require you to be a bit spontaneous. I paint plein air a lot. You only got a window of about 1.5 hours to complete your painting. Otherwise, the sun, shift and your shadows is all over the place. So I have to paint slightly quick, different from what David preached just now. He said, don't rush, take your own sweet time, enjoy yourself, which is true. Well, it all depends what you're painting. If you're doing it plein air, I guess you have to paint a little bit quicker. Okay, so I'm going to move this second wash slightly over to the waterfall here. And with this, we're going to create the contrast. It was very flat after you've done the first wash. And watercolor painting usually looks very ugly at that stage. And that's when a lot of people give up because they thought it's so flat, it doesn't look nice. But what you need to do is to create contrast by adding a second or third layer to make your subject pop. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add darks at the side of the waterfall here. It's some sort of like painting it negatively. So I'm going to darken the side of the waterfall like this. Remember to link some of the foliage from the left to the waterfall so that the artwork doesn't look a bit, like patchy here and there. So you're going to link them up. Now this burnt sienna, I'm going to warm this a little bit. Otherwise it looks too green. Maybe here a little bit as well. Okay, I'll stop right here and we can go for a commercial break. All right, see you later.
Hello, I'm David Poxon. Welcome to historic Weston Park. I'm here today with the SAA film crew to run through our final preparations for the International Watercolour Masters exhibition, which takes place here 28th of April to the 31st of May 2018. So here we are, folks. We're in this fantastic gallery space, the Granary Gallery at Weston Park. In a few weeks' time, paintings will start to arrive and we'll start to select the wall space for some of these great pieces of modern art. From this position here, the artists will be demonstrating their skills. The SAA TV film crew will be screening and live streaming these events live across the internet, especially for SAA members. So make a date in your diaries, 28th of April to the 31st of May 2018, the International Watercolour Masters exhibition at historic Weston Park, supported by the SAA. It's going to be great. See you here.
Let us bring out the artist in you. If you'd like to learn how to paint or improve your painting, the SAA is here to inform, encourage, and inspire you every step of the way. When you become an SAA member, you get so many benefits, including the free bi-monthly newsletter Paint, packed with inspiring step-by-step projects, fascinating articles, and detailed information to get your creative juices flowing. discounts on over 13,000 art products featured on the SAA website and in the Home Shop catalogue, with free order line and free delivery in the UK mainland. A devoted SAA team on hand to answer your questions and give you the confidence and motivation you need to start painting and develop at a pace that suits you. Plus, a free welcome pack filled with gifts and practical help to get you started, as well as the opportunity to make friends with like-minded people.
Best thing of being a member is the inspiration from the magazines, to be able to purchase things at a very reasonable price.
Yeah, you get the reduction on all the materials, the advice you get.
I could shop from home.
It's a community.
It seemed like a very friendly sort of organisation.
If somebody's thinking of joining, don't spend too long thinking. Just join. They'll love it.
And we're back.
All right, welcome back. So I'm gonna continue this painting. I'm gonna do the rocks now. Yep, it's perfectly dried up already. So burnt sienna, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And usually when you paint the second layer, you have to observe or keep in mind where the light source is. For this painting, I'm going to assume it's from the top down, okay? It's probably in the mid-afternoon, top down, and I'm going to have a bit of a light on the top of the rocks. So when I painted the first layer, I left a bit of white paper here. I didn't do it here because this bunch of, bushes will cast some shadows here, so I didn't leave it white. So for the second layer, I'm going to continue from here. A bit of a burnt sienna and alizarin crimson. Okay, from here. I love using this glazing technique because it is the fastest and easiest way to get a darker values. Some artists like to paint it directly, but sometimes you know when you paint it directly, it's harder to judge the intensity of the colors or the shadows for the shadows. So when you do it in stages by glazing it, you always know the second layer will always be of a darker value than the first. Almost there. Okay, a little bit of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna mix again, so that I want to make this part really dark. And I move up slightly to the bush and doing this kind of strokes to suggest some kind of leaves here. Thinks this looks okay. Okay, let this dry and let's move on to this part of the leaves. You know, we had the second layers just now, so I'm going to go for the third, and probably and hopefully it works. The last layer. Said it just now, I want this part to be darker than here, so this is a slightly more intense mix, probably almost between creamy to milk. I think more to the creamy side already. It's really thick. bit of horizon blue to cool things up. Okay, we want to keep this brightly lit. All right, these two sides brightly lit. So what I'm going to do is to paint the underside underneath it with very dark mix of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna again, and maybe a touch of sap green. When you have darks around bright, it gives you the complete contrast. This is, if you look at the value chart, this is probably number 0 or number 1, which is white. And this is not black, it's a rich dark consisting of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, slightly cooler over here. So I add a bit more ultramarine blue and cerulean blue. Okay, and over here as well. All right. Sometimes when you paint, you have to stand back a little bit to look at the picture, the full picture, so that you can see the overall composition. It looks nice, nicely balanced at this moment. Maybe just a
Marvin,
yes.
Someone's just signed in with your YouTube account and has written "Hi Daddy" in the chat, so I'm guessing that must be one of your relatives.
I think it's my children. Hi, Javier. Hi, Vanessa. It's about your bedtime already, so after this, you better go to bed. And I sometimes use my fingernails to scratch the paint while it's wet, or you can use what. This is not for butter. This is a palette knife. All painters use it, but I use it to scratch out some lines and strokes. For example, I may want to have a few leaves here, and I'll just scratch it while it is a bit damp. Don't scratch it while it is completely wet, because it's so wet, the paint will just go back. So timing is key. Scratch it while it is still a little bit damp, like this. So you get this texture like this. It still works here because it's still damp. Okay, but don't overdo this, all right? And the key of, make it look random, okay? Looking random, and don't be too systematic about this. I noticed some of my students tend to do it like, very controlled, 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 strokes, and it doesn't look natural. This is a, really Borneo jungle, all right? So it has to be very spontaneous, very, almost like, I don't call it haphazard, but, you don't make it don't make them like queuing up one leaves after another. Then you spoil the whole spontaneity of the whole, whole picture, right? So apart from your fingernails, and the palette knife, sometimes if I got a shot, if I just file my nails or cut my nails, and I don't have the palette knife with me, I got something. You can use a credit card, Visa card, ATM card, whatever, provided. No, that's mine. Okay, I'm gonna go purchase some SAA materials later with this. No, just joking. So make sure that it has a round edge at the corner. Don't get something that has a very sharp edge, then you just ruin the paper. Find something that has a round edge like this, and then there you go. All right? And just using my finger to smudge it a little bit to soften it. Okay, so we're about 80% done. What I'm going to do now is to add falling leaves here, branches, very dark colors here, and then finish off the water and the rocks, and we're about done, okay? So I'm going to use a synthetic brush now. Synthetic brush, usually they have better tension, and with that you get better control while painting. So if you really have a very sharp point like this, it's almost like drawing with a pencil. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to change the color tones a little bit. I'm going to use a bit of cerulean, okay, to the mix here. I usually don't clean my palette, but just for this show, I cleaned it like 5 minutes ago before we go on live. A bit of lunar black and sap green. Okay, I'm going to test it out here. All right, I think it's good enough. Okay, before I do that strokes, I'm going to use some clean water and just sprinkle a bit onto that top corner, okay? And then damp it, all right? The reason for that is I don't want all my strokes to get all hard and stiff. So to sprinkle a bit of water there, you will get some random hard and soft edges mixed together, and it looks really nice. I'll just show you the strokes that I'm going to make. Okay, this looks like a leaf, right? So I'm making use of the tip of the brush and make strokes like this. All right, nice, isn't it? Okay, I noticed just a tip. When you're painting close-up leaves like this, impressionistly, don't do this. I've seen many people, my students included, when they just join me, do this. They're just going to dot, 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 and it's a mess. Okay, it doesn't look like trees. I don't know what that is. Okay, maybe some insects walking about and step on my paint. All right, so make sure you make use of the tip of the brush and then do this type of strokes. I talk too much, the water has dried up. A little bit of burnt sienna. And sometimes I just do this. I don't know why I did that. All right, so it's fun, you know. Watercolor, don't be afraid of making mistakes, you know. It's just a piece of paper, you know. You can always buy another one if you ruin it. And I sprinkle, what we call splatter, some water at the edge there. I'm going to close this gap up a little bit. I'm getting more leaves here than it really is. Okay. I don't like the shapes of this. Maybe a few more here. Sometimes I just use the side of the brush and do a rough, what you call it, a dry brush strokes over, just to give an impression of the leaves. Okay. Okay. Just darken this a little bit here. A few more strokes. I think we're fine over here overall. Now I'm going to fix the waterfall and make it look like it's really flowing. And again, I'm going to soften here a little bit more. See what it does when you soften the edge? Immediately it looks like it's flowing downwards. And then just with a bit of a, you can call it dirty colors or whatever. As long as it's neutral gray, it's fine. Very diluted grays. and then have it at the side here, in the middle of the waterfall, just impression of water gushing down like this. I think that's fine. All right. Going back with my saber brush now. Oh, not this one, this one. A bit of ultramarine blue to the mix. I think I'm going to clean this up. Just don't get it too muddy. Okay, again, ultramarine blue, cerulean blue, just going to make the water a little bit more defined. A bit of sap green to the blue now, because there's some reflections of the green onto the water. Bit of make sure your finger is clean if you want to smudge some of the paint. Okay. And just going to do a bit of ripples around the waterfalls, with water crashing into the stream. Okay, at this stage, it's probably 90% done. I'll step back, all right, and then have a look at it, and we'll see whether I need to add any more details or change things a little bit here and there. I think it looks pretty flat here, so I'm going to add maybe some trees over here. Just to make it look more interesting, so that it's not flat anymore. You've got bit of a diagonal zigzag kind of a design there. Okay, the rocks is dried up, so I'm going to go for the third layer. Ultramarine blue, burnt sienna, again, two of my favorite colors. And this is where I do a bit of finishing touches to the rocks, give you a bit of a texture, as well as the darkest dark. When you add the darkest dark, you fill it up at the gap between rocks. For example, there are two rocks here. If I'm going to darken this one, and it really pops up. Like this. Okay, add a bit of blue to gray it down a little bit. This is horizon blue mixed to the gray I have just now, just to flatten it a bit. Although the rocks are in the foreground, I don't want to make them too detailed because they're going to be very distracting. Because I want my main focus, the main subject to be the waterfall. So even though these rocks are in the foreground, I'm just going to paint them a little bit more detailed than what it is now, just a bit more, but not too much, so that they don't, get distracted. And this bit of green looks a bit too empty here. So at this stage, usually you can either do a quick stroke, few strokes like what I did here and here, or you can mix a bit of dark greens like this, and then splatter a bit here, and then join them up a bit here, but still keep the values, You still have the same values, just that a little bit more texture to fill it up. I think it looks okay so far. Now, we still have, how much time do we have?
About 2 minutes.
2 minutes, all right, just nice. So I'm gonna use the smallest brush here, and then just add in some branches. It's a bit too brown, a bit more ultramarine blue. Maybe I need a bit more darks over here because there's lots of greens here. Oops, not this color. All right, there we go. I think just nice. So following my plan, if you can see, 2 darks over here, darks here on the hanging branches, the rocks, this bit, almost to the T. All right, so next time when you want to paint anything, make sure you make a rough sketch so that it's just like a map. When you drive, you need a map. Now we go GPS now, but you need a sketch, especially a value study. I think it's really important. And with that, it kind of guides you where to go, all right? And just smudge it, this part, a little bit so that it doesn't go so... Yeah, so that it's a little bit softer. Okay? Sometimes I have a tube of Chinese white just to splatter a bit of white on the waterfall here. I'm just going to get it. Sorry. So this is my Chinese white. Okay, and then just splatter a little bit here, those coming out. Oops. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna remove the tape and you'll see the whole thing in a nice white frame. you go. Right, any questions so far?
Everyone's loving it.
All right, thank
So
you.
great.
Okay, so I'm going to do a demo on the 28th of April at Western Park International Watercolour Masters every day. My demo is on 12:30 p.m., so I hope to see everyone there. All right, good stuff. Thank you.
Hello, I'm David Poxon. Welcome to historic Western Park. I'm here today with the SAA film crew to run through our final preparations for the International Watercolour Masters exhibition, which takes place here 28th of April to the 31st of May 2018. So here we are, folks. We're in this fantastic gallery space, the Granary Gallery at Western Park. In a few weeks' time, paintings will start to arrive and we'll start to select the wall space for some of these great pieces of modern art. From this position here, the artists will be demonstrating their skills. The SAA TV film crew will be screening and live streaming these events live across the internet, especially for SAA members. So make a date in your diaries, 28th of April to the 31st of May 2018. The International Watercolour Masters exhibition at historic Western Park, supported by the SAA. It's going to be great. See you here.